Hello, welcome to a fresh episode of Mocca with Moiz. हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं हमारी आज की मेहमान, a teacher, a writer, a Twitter celebrity, Aimun Faisal. Aimun, what's up?
What's up? I mean, आजकल तो कुछ नहीं, like just working and writing. And
Working and writing?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds exciting. Speaking of working, you shot to fame and you acquired a lot of fame with your letters to NASA. So just tell us, walk us through that. How did that happen?
That didn't really, I mean, it was just like we were in class and like one of the kids asked me something and I was like, I don't know the answer to this. Like a scientist would. And it was one of those questions like, is Jupiter made of diamonds? What is the question? So I was like, and then like I was writing on the board and just randomly I went like, and she's like, oh, can we ask a scientist? And I was like, do you want to write to NASA? We can write to NASA. And us time I thought they might have like this kind of PR outlet where like you write them things and they respond in like standardized responses. And then she was like, oh yeah, let's write to NASA. So I was like, okay, so everyone like bring questions and we'll like, compile a list and we'll send it to NASA. So I went back to check or like NASA did not have any of that kind of outlet. So I was like, oh, so like they don't have like a PR kind of. So I asked around, I was like, hey, is there a thing where you can email NASA and they'll respond? And they're like, they don't usually do that with like elementary kids. So I was like, okay, अब वो कल बच्चे list भी ले आए. I'm like, I can't tell them कि, ये तो list जा नहीं सकती because I don't know, like I thought होगा कुछ info@nasa.com करके, वो नहीं था. तो फिर I kind of like we wrote this letter. I was also teaching them English at the time. So like it was also like a, like how do you write
Writing
a letter?
exercise, yeah.
Writing exercise. And then we wrote this letter and we sent it to, and then I posted it on Twitter. I was like, that's like a shot I'll take.
Were you expecting it to?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I was almost preparing myself like, what do I tell them? Because I also told them this. I was like, it is entirely possible they won't respond. So, like, don't pin hopes on this. But that's okay. We just need to write to them. But yeah, then they responded. And then NASA happened. And then, yeah, all of that.
The one thing that's really interesting is there's a lot to unpack over here. जो एक चीज है कि एक तो I think you had the courage to say that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think हमारा ये बड़ा है कि अगर आप एक टीचर है तो आप बच्चों को ये नहीं कह सकते कि I don't have the answer to this question.
Yeah.
And there are going to be things जिसका आपके पास जवाब नहीं है.
A lot of things.
और दूसरी चीज ये है कि एक सवाल जो कि शायद उस टेक्स्ट बुक या उस करिकुलम के अंदर ना भी हो, you're willing to accept those questions and find answers to those questions. और ये आई थिंक हमारा बड़ा एक मसला है कि हम जब बात करते हैं अपने माशरे की तो आई थिंक बड़ा एक लेजी सा लोग बात कहते हैं कि हमारे यहाँ एक लैक ऑफ एजुकेशन है कि ठीक है लैक ऑफ एजुकेशन तो बिल्कुल है, लेकिन जिन लोगों को हमने तालीमी निज़ाम के अंदर पहुंचा दिया है, जिन्होंने डिग्रीज ले ली हैं, स्कूल और कॉलेज चले भी गए हैं, वो हम उनको किस तरह की तालीम मिल रही है. एंड अब हम देखते हैं फॉर एग्जाम्पल कि बहुत सारे पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं जो कह रहे हैं कि जी मलाला एजेंट है, जो कह रहे हैं कि ये तहरीक लबैक बड़ी ज़बरदस्त पॉलिटिकल पार्टी है. सो ये जो critical thinking है, and in your experience as a teacher, how important is that? And what do you think, are schools really doing much to promote critical thinking?
I mean, our schools aren't doing anything to promote critical thinking in the same way that no one's really doing anything to promote critical thinking. Matlab, like the way all institutions in this country work, most institutions in this country works, in this country work is like you have someone in power, and like that's the person with authority. And they'll give you an order and you follow that order. Like if आप अपना दिमाग ना लगाएं, उन्होंने जो कह दिया आप वो कर लें, आप भी आराम से घर जाएंगे, वो भी आराम से घर जाएंगे. आपने ज़्यादा बहस मुबाहिसा किया तो मतलब या आपकी छुट्टी हो जाएगी या मतलब
फिर आप कहीं और जाएंगे.
तो मतलब क्या कहते हैं, like that's how like everyone's working. Like तो वो स्कूल से लेके फिर वो आपकी जॉब में, वो आपकी फैमिली सिस्टम में, वो आप जो है वो आप पुलिस से बात करके देख लें, वो आप किसी भी मतलब आप like किसी भी अथॉरिटी फिगर से बात करके देख लें. Like we have this culture collectively where you can't question things. Like we can't say ये गलत हो रहा है because that is like instantly assumed as like an insult.
I think ये आपके घर में शुरू हो जाती है where you can't question your parents, you can't question your elders कि नहीं उन्होंने बात कह दी अब आप बहस ना करें. बिल्कुल
आप चुप हो जाएं. मतलब आपको पता है ना आप सही कह रहे थे, आप चुप हो जाएं. सही है तो like obviously like when kids come to class and like like because like we go through that system all our life, when we get like our first taste of power we become very insecure with it. Okay, so like anytime a kid questions us, because we weren't allowed to question anyone, like our first insecurity is we can't tell them that we don't know this, because in our head every person who's in a position of authority should know exactly what they're doing, right? तो मतलब अगर से कोई बच्चा आपसे सवाल पूछे और आपको नहीं पता तो आप उसको कैसे बोलें कि मुझे नहीं पता? Like, you know, like all your life no adult has ever told you कि हमें नहीं पता. So like that is a, like, that's how critical thinking is being killed. Like no one wants to admit they don't know things, and that's okay. Like there's a lot in the world you don't know, and that's okay to admit you don't know it. Magar, like, you know, like going out of your way to justify things that do not, like, you know, stand on like scientific ground or like an ethical ground, क्योंकि ऐसा ही होता है और ऐसे ही चलेगा. Like that's kind of, and then what we also do is we infantilize kids. So like in our head, the first thing, like when we say कि मतलब बच्चे ने सवाल पूछा, like बच्चा है, you know, बहला दो, फुसला दो, or like tell them to like give them a shut up call and they like not ask again and they won't bother you. But like kids are also human beings. You forget kids are human beings, and like they have like the same emotional capacity that other human beings have, and like they have the same kind of like questions that other human beings have, and just like we want our, like, you know, just like we want empathy with when people are dealing with us, children want empathy when people are dealing with them. They aren't like extensions of like their parents. You know, they aren't like half-baked human beings. They are full, complete like human beings with the full spectrum of human emotion and the full spectrum of human intellect, and like they're asking you something and you respond to it as you would respond to another person. You don't think, oh, ye to bachcha hai, isko kuch bhi keh do. And that's really what we do with our kids. We infantilize them to the point ke matlab, you know, like no matter how old you get, you're standing in front of anyone with power, and if you're younger than them, they will infantilize you no matter what your, like, you know, expertise are. So yeah.
You know, one thing that's really interesting is that you say that ये जो critical thinking है ये ना सिर्फ हमारे schools में नहीं होती बल्कि घर के अंदर भी नहीं होती. And I remember I was reading one of your articles for Dawn where you said that when colonialism came in the subcontinent, the colonized man felt that he was emasculated क्योंकि एक उसके ऊपर ऐसा राज मुसल्लत था कि जो कहता था कि हम तुमसे रेशली भी ज़्यादा सुपीरियर हैं, in terms of other skills भी हम तुमसे ज़्यादा सुपीरियर हैं.
Yeah, also you lost the war, right?
Yes, you lost the war.
You lost your land.
You lost your land, you lost your war, you lost your influence.
So like physically they were superior than you.
Yes. So essentially the only place for that man, for the colonized man to exert his influence was then his house, which meant कि उसने अपनी औरत के साथ अपने ऑनर को लिंक करना शुरू कर दिया. उसकी सारी जो मर्दांगी थी वो आके उसकी औरत के ऊपर खत्म हो जाया करती थी. एंड दैट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट. और हम आज भी देखते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल हमने रिसेंटली देखा कि मलाला ने एक दिन Malala gave an interview where she said a number of things, and one of the lines was that, you know, why do we need to get married, which was what most people our age say all the time, but because वो हमारी I think बहुत से लोगों की पाकिस्तान के अंदर मर्दांगी चैलेंज हो गई थी. इस औरत ने कैसे कहा कि शादी नहीं होनी चाहिए. तो you see 60-year-old uncles on Twitter say कि देखो ये तो कितनी खराब है, ये तो एजेंट है, ये तो वो है.
I mean, Partha Chatterjee said that. That's his theory on, like, you know, why, like, you know, gender and colonialism and nationalism, and especially, and this is something you see in South Asia. Like, it's not just in Pakistan. You also see this in India. You also see this in Bangladesh. There is this kind of, you know, like, honor killing India mein bhi ho rahi hai, honor killing Bangladesh mein bhi ho rahi hai. That is, like, like, honor killing is a very South Asian kind of, like, just rate pe idhar hoti hai, us rate pe kahin nahi hoti. And, like, that's really because, you know, you've tied honor to women. And like with Malala, again, like it blows my mind कि वो मतलब like she's a 23-year-old, you know, like I mean she's done a lot of things, but she's still like a 23-year-old girl who just went through college, and you know, like she's forming like, you know, personal bonds, or मतलब having like her first kind of like encounter with like romantic relationships and all of that, and like the entire context really of it was कि मतलब I told my mom कि मैंने शादी नहीं करनी, और like, you know, कि कानून को बीच में आने की क्या जरूरत है, और मतलब आप किसी के साथ ऐसे ही रह लो. और मेरी अम्मा ने कहा चुप करके बैठो, शादी करनी जरूरी होती है, which is a conversation all of us have with our parents, like, you know, like that is a conversation. And like she laughed about it because, you know, and she's like, वो मेरे अब्बा को पाकिस्तान से रिश्ते आते हैं कि मतलब, you know, मुझे मैसेज करते हैं कि मतलब मैं आपकी बेटी से शादी करनी है. And like that's a very kind of, I mean, at least urban experience for women in their 20s, like, you know, like होती हैं ये बातें घर में. So that's not like, no, like anyone who's like questioning anything is not like outrightly attacking you or saying तुम जो कर रहे हो वो गलत है. Like people can have different ways of life, and people can have different opinions of things, and that doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. That just means what you're doing is right for you, and what they're doing is right for them, and you just let them do it.
इसमें एक I think रोल बड़ा हमारे कल्चर का भी है, बट हमारे टीवी ड्रामास का भी है. सो फॉर एग्जांपल if you look at some of the recent dramas we've had, तो आपके क्या टॉपिक्स कवर हुए उन ड्रामों के अंदर कि एक औरत हो सकता है आदमी के ऊपर चीट कर दिया, एक औरत इल्ज़ाम लगाती है अपने प्रोफेसर के ऊपर हरासमेंट का तो वो झूठी है, एक औरत ने अपने मियाँ के ऊपर डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस का इल्ज़ाम लगाया तो वो झूठी है, एक औरत ने अपने ससुर के ऊपर हरासमेंट का इल्ज़ाम लगाया है तो वो झूठी है. सो यानी कि ये जो पूरा कल्चर है, आई मीन व्हाट डज दिस प्रमोट कि हाँ अगर औरत कोई इल्ज़ाम लगा रही किसी के ऊपर तो वो झूठी होगी या फिर वो बेवकूफ़ होगी या फिर मतलब वो गुमराह होगी.
Yeah. No, not just, I mean, no, they're like, I mean, the counter argument is कि like हम इतनी stories तो दिखाते हैं जिसके अंदर, like, women have gone through stuff and like, वो सही कह रही हैं और कोई उनकी बात मान नहीं रहा, but it's kind of really how you frame it.
But also I think in those stories, if you notice that...
It's a sob story.
It's a sob story as well, and अगर for example एक औरत cheat हुई होगी, ठीक है, और अगर आखिर में अपने
cheat तो is not like a thing. Like, cheat is in the thing. Like एक मर्द की दो शादी होना normal बात है. वो उसको
और अगर वो औरत आखिर में अपने मियाँ को माफ कर देगी तो वो she would be glorified because of the fact that she's forgiven her husband.
No, that's the thing that happened. So there was this famous show in which Myra Khan starred with Mikhail Zulfikar.
Okay, I remember that one. I haven't watched it, but I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah. And it was the same story, and it was all about how this girl, she like really liked this really good-looking guy, and she was into looks, and like she married him, and then baad mein jo hai, he left her, and she suddenly realized, oh, vanity is nothing, everything is God. And I was like, okay, sahi hai. And then in the end, she forgave him. Okay, like I found God, I forgive you. Except when Mavis cheated on Danish, he didn't find God, he died.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there was no forgiveness, there was no redemption for that character. There was like, and like, she was like outrightly just like a terrible person. Like there is no shades of grey in this person. Ke like, hey, like maybe she's ambitious and she like
maybe she had a backstory.
Maybe she had a backstory. Like she comes from this like small household and she's been ambitious forever, or or like just the fact ki matlab like what like something other than money attracted her. Like like people don't function that way. They don't function in like this one tone war of like मुझको पैसा चाहिए और फिर मैं कुछ भी करूँगी उस पैसे के लिए. Like women, especially women, like they kind of understand like the society they belong to and like the repercussions of it. So like I'm not saying it's not like no woman would ever cheat on her husband for money. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not as straightforward as तुम्हारे पास पैसा नहीं है, उसके पास पैसा है तो मैं तो
Also in that drama, if I'm not wrong, Adnan Siddiqui got back with his wife, even though he was also cheating on his wife.
Yeah, and like the money was his wife's.
Yeah.
So he got back together with her.
Yeah.
And he was fine in the end. Yeah. Like nothing happened to him. Like sure, his wife and him had like a difficult relationship.
But that they already had, yeah.
That they already had. She was the only one who got punished because like, and I mean, it was also like very like it was very derogatory towards women the way it was written. So it's kind of just.
But that's not a surprise if you look at the writer's opinions.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise if you look at the writer's opinions, but it's also just like you need to be responsible with the content you're putting out. So like this idea कि हम तो सिर्फ entertainment के लिए बनाते हैं, it doesn't hold true. So if Fahad Mustafa comes on Twitter and says #respect women,
that was so ironic.
These projects, like stop. You can't like you can't stoke this fire of misogyny in society and then come on Twitter and be like, I can't believe you're doing this. Like why can't you believe they're doing this? Like तुमसे सब कह रहे थे कि तुम ये क्या फंड कर रहे हो. Then तो है कि मतलब मैं तो बिजनेस चला रहा हूँ, लोग पसंद ही करते हैं. तो किस लिए पसंद करते हैं भाई?
तो इसका मतलब लोगों में कोई बुराई है.
तो लोग किस लिए पसंद करते हैं यार? तुम मतलब फिर दिमाग लगाओ ना. तो अब तुम आके ट्विटर पे #respect women बोलोगे तो क्या किसको क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है इससे?
Also, मुझे ये भी बड़ा बुरा लगता है कि जब लोग कहते हैं कि वो लोग हमारे देखते ही हैं. I mean that's also insulting your audience's intelligence because आपने कितने दूसरे ड्रामे बना के देखे हैं. अगर आप बना के देखेंगे नहीं. We had Vajat Rauf on one of our earlier episodes and I asked him this question and he said कि he agreed and he said कि जो बनाते भी हैं अगर आप 1000 में से एक ड्रामा कोई थोड़ा सा बना भी देंगे थोड़ा एजी सा ड्रामा, that's not a big enough sample size. तो आपको कैसे पता कि लोग देखेंगे नहीं अगर आपके बेहतर कंटेंट बनाएंगे. So for example, Chudai's did really well.
Yeah.
Even though Chudai's was quite edgy, was quite different than all these dramas as well. So जब तक आप बनाएंगे नहीं, टेस्ट नहीं करेंगे, आपको पता कैसे चलेगा कि लोग नहीं देखते.
I mean, Chudai's also did really well because it was mostly like a web show, so it was targeting like a different kind of audience. But like even on TV, you have stuff like क्या कहते हैं this Yamna Zedi show that's coming on like prostitution and like trafficking and all of that.
I haven't watched that.
Yeah, so so okay, so there's this show Dil Na Umeed To Nahi, and it's like Yamna Zedi, but they're showing it and it's written by Kash Foundation.
Okay.
So what they're showing is like, you know, how
Gush
human...
Foundation I think also sponsored Udari. Yeah.
So they're showing how human trafficking functions, and they're showing you like, you know, like sex workers in like very kind of empathetic light. Okay, you know, like they're trapped in this cycle of violence. कि मतलब, you know, like निकलने का कोई तरीका ही नहीं होता इसमें से. And like, so it's not like they're demonizing these women, they're like demonizing the society that like, you know, pushes them into it. कि मतलब वो छोटी होती है तो like their parents sell her off because बड़ी वाली की शादी करनी होती है और मतलब उसके पैसे नहीं होते, so they sell her off, she ends up at a brothel, and like, you know, like this is her life since then, and like she's trying to run away and she experienced all this violence there.
I'm surprised पेपर ने अब तक इसको बैन कैसे नहीं किया.
आया था उनको नोटिस.
Okay, हाँ, because उडारी को भी आया था.
हाँ, इनको भी आया था कि आप जो हैं वो बेहयाई फैला रहे हैं माशरे में. So like it's not like ये ड्रामे बनते. I mean of course like no big like channel runs this. Like I think Udari तो हमने फिर like ran because again Udari was about like, you know, like a man raping a child. तो वो तो like that could have फिर like ran on hum. Like someone trying to empathize with sex workers wouldn't have run on any of these big channels. लेकिन मतलब it's not like ये ड्रामे बनते नहीं है. I mean not just right now. Like I mean your entire drama industry stands on like Hasina Moin's content. You know, like आपका सारा 80s का अनकही तन्हाइयाँ धूप किनारे, like you know all of that stands on like that kind of content. Like if you
have very strong female characters as well.
Yeah, if you just look at Tanhaiya, there was like 3 women staying in a house in Karachi together with like, you know, like none of them married, none of them like, you know, Ani got married at like what, like in her middle ages because like, you know, like her neighbor fell in love with her and it was like a whole like thing. You can't imagine that kind of storytelling now. You can't imagine. And like even with like Tanhaiya, like what the shows Zara as was like this girl who's like intent कि मैंने पैसे कमाने. Like, you know, like I'll marry someone for money.
Also,
I have to marry for money.
इसमें जो सबसे interesting बात है, and I Sabaha Zakaria did this YouTube video a few days back where she said that हमें लगता है कि ज़िया का दौर बहुत बुरा था, जो कि था, लेकिन बहुत सी important cultural developments भी तब हुई थी. So ये सारे ड्रामे अनकही तन्हाइयाँ they came during Zia's era कि जिसको लोग कहते हैं कि बड़ा औरतों के लिए खराब था, जो कि था भी, लेकिन ये सारी चीजें उसके बावजूद हो रही थी.
That's the difference because like people writing at that time did not grow up in Zia's Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right? So like they had grown up in a Pakistan where they could imagine these possibilities, or at least like they'd grown up in a Pakistan where like the future seemed like better. You know, like so right now people writing content are the people who grew up in Zia's Pakistan.
Yeah.
You know, so like now it's like so like there
the
is
seeds have sown.
Yeah. So there is like this fissure. Like I'm not saying कि मतलब सारा मसला जो है वो ज़िया के टाइम पे शुरू हुआ था या मतलब that all of that is just like, you know, like us not willing to accept कि हमारे अंदर शुरू से मसले हैं. But like there is this kind of like very repressive regime that came during Zia's time, and like the people who are writing now are the people who grew up then. Yeah. So like it's not मतलब so like that logically tracks कि Zia के time पे of course like the content we were putting out was much more progressive because the people who were writing that content were not socialized in that environment. Like the people writing content now are socialized in the environment. Also like उस जमाने में PTV होता था. Like PTV wasn't profit oriented. Like PTV was backed by state money. So like they could kind of like they didn't care कि मतलब पैसे ad revenue क्या आ रहा है क्या नहीं आ रहा. But so like दिल ना उम्मीद तो नहीं I think is also being shown on PTV.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But I think I'm not sure. लेकिन ये जो है like now you have like you know फहद मुस्तफ़ा सिंह कि मैं तो पैसों के लिए करता हूँ. तो like जो लोग देखेंगे मैं तो वही बनाऊंगा. And like now you're just selling cheap thrills to people. It's like the same kind of like nonsense, you know, like the same kind of Salman Khan films that this is appealing to the lowest common denominator. So yeah, like we won't even try to like, you know, make something that kind of pushes the envelope because we know कि हमें पैसे से मिलेंगे. And like you can see this in the kind of content every channel is putting out. So it's not like हमने एक ही ड्रामा तो ऐसा बनाया है जिसके अंदर वो झूठ बोल रही थी. Like ARY for a very long time has been pushing this kind of content कि वो क्या कहते हैं you know कि मतलब क्या कहते हैं sexual harassment का वो अभी क्या है society में. Like you know like a famous celebrity can come out and say कि I was sexually harassed and you would have like a massive online campaign against her. Like,
in fact with ARY it's not just their dramas, it's also their news reporting.
Yeah, their news reporting as well. And like I mean the argument about it and like this is so like you know this is kind of how women are silenced के you know मर्दों के साथ ऐसा होता तो I'm not saying नहीं होता लगाता होगा कोई झूठा इल्जाम. Like you know like this thing actually happened in a college in Punjab where like a girl accused her professor and like he was innocent. Okay so show me that happening. But you showing me कि उसने जो है वो प्रोफेसर पे इल्जाम लगा दिया और like if you follow that drama वो प्रोफेसर मर गया. Her fiance found out कि जो है इसने झूठ बोला था तो उसने fiance पे भी इल्जाम लगा दिया और अब fiance is going around trying to prove to everyone. I was like बीबी एक तो एक इल्जाम लोग मान जाए ना तो बड़ी बात होती है. तुम सब पे इल्जाम लगाए चली जाओ ना तो लोग आके कहते हैं भाई क्या मसला क्या है, मतलब हर कोई तुम्हारे साथ कुछ करता है.
अच्छा ऑल्सो ठीक है लगते होंगे झूठे इल्जाम, लेकिन अगर 5-10% झूठे इल्जाम लग रहे हैं और 80-90% इल्जाम ठीक लग रहे हैं तो आपने पहले कितने ड्रामे बनाए हैं उन इंस्टेंसेस के ऊपर जहाँ पे वाकई हरासमेंट हुई है. अगर आपने 5 ड्रामे उस तरह के बना लिए फिर आप कहें कि नहीं यार अब ये भी बड़ा जरूरी है बिकॉज़ हमने दूसरी साइड पे दिखानी है.
But then you're not even showing the दूसरी side ना, then you're just sensationalizing. It's like there is no empathy for the professor who actually died because this happened. You're using this as an excuse to like show this woman in a terrible light. Like there is no empathy to like वो story बंद हो गई है उस ड्रामे में. Like वो मर गया. Like he committed suicide, that story is ended. Now it's like you know like this love triangle कि like her fiance dumped her तो अब उसने उस पे इल्जाम लगा दिया है and like he is married to like her best friend now, so like there is this kind of like intrigue कि कौन किस पे भरोसा करेगा what not, and you're like but then that's not about false allegations. That's just about a bad woman trying to destroy a house, which is also, the same story we've been shown. ये
भी एक है ना मसला कि when you talk about all these celebrities, so you talk about Fahd Mustafa for example, even someone like Nuwan Ijaz for example, आप एक जगह उठते हैं कहते हैं कि जी औरतों का बड़ा एहतराम करें, फिर आप कहते हैं कि जी मैं अपनी बीवी के ऊपर चीट करता हूं, I'm such an intelligent man that he doesn't find out. Yeah, I mean
that's kind of that's the kind of behavior we've also enabled. In like I mean joking about a second marriage is casual. You know like you won't see a woman joking about the fact कि मैं तुम्हें छोड़ के किसी और के पास चली जाऊंगी. Like you kind of know okay you know like you're financially tied to this person and you can't leave, and that's also systemic. Like this idea कि you know हम कमा के खिलाते हैं, that's because like you know like ever since women are children you don't let them out of the house, you don't let them earn. So like it's not just कि हमने तुम मतलब like I mean the most earning people do is like हाँ teacher बन जाओ. You know like there's no sense of like yeah घर से निकलेगी so she'll have to stay out late because networking is an issue, or like you know like or the fact कि मतलब just conveyance is an issue for women, or just going around in this country is an issue for women. Like there is no public transport, there is no like pedestrian spaces, there is constant sexual harassment. Like women can't step out into this like in the city without like you know attracting just all kinds of attention. And so it's not just like तुम जाके नौकरी कर लो, like it's not that like it's not like you've built a system where a woman, even if she tries to become financially independent, very few would survive. And like you know so they know they're financially tied to you, so you can joke about hey I can go marry someone else. She can't, and we've enabled this behavior and we've thought this is funny, and like all our jokes are about like this woman who's constantly on this man's head क्योंकि हाय वो बेचारा और वो घर पे जो है वो डरता है बीवी से बहुत ज्यादा, and you're just like कहाँ हो रहा है मुझे भी दिखाओ कौन से घर है ये.
Which reminds me, I mean I was this friend sent me a video of this, I don't want to name him, but this religious figure in Pakistan who's apparently grown very popular amongst the masses in the last 2-3 years, and he sent this to me, you know, for comic value. But it was also so scary कि you know कि 500 बंदे बैठे हुए हैं और ये आदमी कहता है कि ये जो लिबरल है ना जो कहते हैं कि एक्चुअली 9 साल की बच्चे से शादी नहीं हो सकती, बिल्कुल गलत कहता है, आप 9 साल की बच्चे से शादी भी कर सकते हैं. एंड देन ही सेड कि आप देखें कि मेरे भाई की शादी में ना म्यूजिक थी तो मैं अपने भाई की शादी पे नहीं गया, तो अल्लाह ने मुझे उसका इनाम ये दिया कि मेरी एक की जगह 3 शादियाँ हो गई हैं और अब मेरे 16 बच्चे हैं. और जो लोग कहते हैं कि 16 बच्चे पैदा ना करें बिल्कुल गलत है, उससे बात कहते हैं, इनकी आप बात ना मानिए. विच इज़ ऑल्सो वेरी डेंजरस कि आपके मुल्क के अंदर के जहाँ पर औरतों के साथ वैसे इतना बुरा ट्रीटमेंट है, जहाँ पे आपकी वैसी आबादी इतनी बढ़ रही है, वहाँ पर आपके वो लोग जिनको लोग सुनते हैं जिनका इन्फ्लुएंस है लोगों के अंदर, वो कह रहे हैं कि नहीं 3 शादियाँ भी करो, बीवियों को इतना तो कोई you know लिफ्ट भी ना कराओ.
Yeah, because I mean that's how you're selling religion to everyone. Like that's how like I mean इस मुल्क में like religion just centers around women. You know like if you're a good man, you'll get a good woman and you'll have sex. If you're a bad man, say yeah, तो मतलब you'll go to Jahannam. So it's never like heaven and hell, it's like sex and hell. And that also comes from the fact that like you keep people like so repressed. Like I was like joking about this, like so that thing that happened where like this girl proposed to a boy at a college and like they got expelled, and it's like इस मुल्क में बंदा heterosexual होना भी हराम है. And like someone joked about this, and I was like hey will you come out to your parents if you're gay, and so I was like dude I won't come out to my parents if I'm straight. Like I can't tell my parents if I'm dating. I mean जो अभी
recently हुआ है कि वो जो the man kissed apparently his wife in the plane. अच्छा although I can understand for example कि अगर आपका कुछ साथ छोटा बच्चा है, even though I think that's also you know not understandable, but अच्छा I can also understand someone being uncomfortable.
With
I mean,
PDA.
yeah, to each their own.
Yeah.
But to come back, like to land in Karachi and then to officially file a complaint
Yeah.
against them and say कि बहुत नाज़ेबा हरकत कर रहे थे ये लोग.
Yeah, I mean, also we just live in a loveless society.
Yeah.
Like हमारी society में to express love is kind of just like
वो भैया को थप्पड़ मार दे तो सब कहते हैं कि नहीं आपस का मामला है.
Like I mean, like even like for example when Hamza Ali Abbasi was about to get married, there was this whole thing of like हम date नहीं कर रहे.
Platonic friends.
Platonic friends. I was like, यार तुम बोल सकते हो कि like you're into her and like sure like.
और उसका तो बड़ा अजीब था कि I'm not marrying her for love. I'm marrying her for Allah.
Yeah, for Allah. And you're just like. You can tell people, like you can tell people कि you know, I mean I also get that कि you know like there's this instant kind of like backlash of like you know this is haram and whatever, but like also the fact that if you feel like you would not be personally impacted by it, just like tell, because what this society really needs is people expressing greater love for other people.
जिस तरह पाकिस्तान में किसी की लव मैरिज तो कहते हैं ना कि इनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग
थी like they were dating.
Yeah, नहीं डेट नहीं कर, उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग थी, फिर वो रिश्ता आ गया.
हाँ, फिर रिश्ता आ गया उनके यहाँ से, and we were just like, okay, I mean, fine, yeah.
अच्छा, by the way, now just you know towards the end, let's just talk about a little bit about something lighter. हमने बड़ी serious बातें कर ली. You're also a huge cricket fan.
Yeah.
And you were hosting a cricket show until in the first round of the PSL. Until Corona happened. So who are you supporting in the PSL?
I mean, I should support Karachi.
No, you shouldn't. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't support Karachi either. I support Quetta, but they're not doing too well this year.
I mean, it's really like terrifying that my love for Babar Azam and my love for the city still can't get me to stick to that management.
Yeah.
So, uske baad I kind of like support on a match by match basis, like whoever like is like a more fun team in the war. So like if Karachi wins the tournament, I'd be happy, but like honestly, at what cost?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, you know, like if we can crowdfund our own team, I think that would be the team I'll support. It's really disheartening to see Quetta like really flounder this season, because that is one team you don't expect it from.
Yeah.
And like, and it's always fun when Lahore wins and when Lahore loses. Like Lahore is great in that sense. It's always fun when they win and it's always fun when they lose. So like you don't support them, but like you know like what people say about Pakistan. Like as a neutral viewer, this is a lot of fun to watch, and you're like,
I don't mind supporting Karachi Kings though if they give me an apartment in Laguna. जिस तरह अभी बेरी टाउन ने 500 रुपए देते हैं लोगों को ट्वीट करने के लिए.
लोग 5 लाइक आई मीन तुम मलिक रियाज के लिए ट्वीट कर रहे हो, तुम पैसे तो ज्यादा मांगो उससे.
500 रुपए
5,000 मांगो भाई, वो दे सकता है.
एनीवे उसके बाद मुझे याद है कि वो one of his I think relatives, I think his I don't know if he was his grandson or someone who said that you know कि हमने गरीबों के लिए बेरी टाउन बना दी है तो हम अब पूरे पाकिस्तान को बहरिया बना देंगे. Yeah, there was a tweet which said that you know Malik Riaz has converted, like has made this oasis for the poor.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, and now like हम पूरे पाकिस्तान को बेरिया टाउन बना देंगे.
हाँ, DH और बेरिया टाउन की रेस लगी हुई है, कौन पहले पूरे पाकिस्तान को DH या बेरिया टाउन बना सकता है.
I mean, I think they're linked obviously. Yeah.
But like that's the competition we have.
That's the competition we have. Yes, if you can pay enough.
I mean, yeah, but then like if you don't pay enough, then तो मतलब आपका गया ना घर.
हाँ, फिर आप घर भी गया, फिर आपके साथ वो भी हो जाएगा
जेल भी जाएंगे,
जो गुजर नाले वालों के साथ हो रहा है,
फायर भी खूब कर दिया जाएगा.
It's also interesting. I mean, we had you know Gulrez, right? We had Gulrez over here a few weeks ago. And we were talking about how जब आप बहरिया बनाते हैं, DH बनाते हैं, तो आप रेगुलराइज भी कर देते हैं, आप बड़े फरागदिल हो जाते हैं. लेकिन जब गुजर नाले की बात आती है,
वो तो डेवलपमेंट हो रही है ना.
हाँ,
डेवलपमेंट हो रही है.
और वहाँ पर आप कहते हैं कि नहीं तो बड़े गरीब हैं, गरीबों को शहर से दूर कर दो.
I mean, if you have stuff like you know Islamabad is the first poor-free city in Asia, like on Twitter as a brag, and
there's an anti-Baig division apparently now. Yeah,
and you're just like, तुम लोग क्या कर रहे हो? Like, I haven't like how heartless do you have to be to think this is like a good like to think you should tweet this like this is a brag. Like how insane do you have to be to do that?
एक तो थिंक जो हमारे सिविल सर्वेंट्स हैं उनको थोड़ी सी सेंसिटिविटी ट्रेनिंग की बड़ी जरूरत होती है, बिकॉज़
थोड़ी सी नहीं,
हाँ, उनको
हमारे
लगता है
हर किसी को सेंसिटिविटी ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है. मतलब आप गरीबों को मारना बंद करें.
और नहीं, मुझे याद है कि ये बड़ी अजीब सी चीज थी कि एक यू probably remember this last रमजान की I think बात है कि वो was a civil servant, he was I think doing you know he was engaged in COVID activities, you know उनको खाना देना जो लोग affected थे सब थे, and then उसने अपनी लैंड क्रूजर की बोनट के ऊपर अफ्तारी रखी हुई थी, लिखा था कि this is how your civil servants have अफ्तारी. आप गाड़ी के अंदर बैठ जाए, आपकी अच्छी खासी बड़ी गाड़ी है, हाँ,
आप गाड़ी ना रखे ना फ्रेम पे, अगर से आपको ये मतलब शोशा
हाँ।
मारना है कि हम तो बड़ी मेहनत करते
बड़ी
हैं,
मेहनत
तो
करते
गाड़ी
हैं।
तो हटाओ ना, मतलब सबको
हाँ,
समझ में आ रही है कि क्या हो रहा है.
exactly. And it's interesting how they always have photographers जो सब चीज़ों की document कर रहा होता है.
Yeah, they always have a photo. Also, like, I think they don't realize that the entire world does not have Land Cruisers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, there's this kind of like, they're really out of touch with like what is happening, which is insane, right? Because they're dealing with them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And they still don't understand that like what they have is not the norm. The people they're serving is what's normal in this country. So, but yeah.
So even towards the end, you've taught, you've left your teaching job now. You are currently writing for Dawn. You are doing a bunch of other things as well. What does 2021 like? What are the 2 or 3 things that you would hope to work on in 2021?
I mean, I was kind of just like hoping on like writing more, and you know, just like good journalism, good reading, stuff like that. That's really, I mean, I don't really plan these things like far out. Like things kind of just happen and I roll with them.
Okay, now we haven't done this before, but like because you're over here, I would really like to do this on this episode because हमें काफी लोग between 18 to 25 देख रहे होते हैं.
Yeah.
And because you're so well read, I would like to put you on the spot. And if you have any reading recommendations for people and books that you personally thought were instrumental in widening your own horizons and widening your own worldview.
All About Love
Okay.
by Bell Hooks. Pick up any James Baldwin book, like, I mean, fiction or non-fiction. Keep in mind he was a gay black man, and he's writing in the USA of the 80s, so like keep that in mind. But that guy, Edward Said, like read him, but he's academic.
Yeah.
So you'll have to like, I mean, watch his interviews really to get the feel of him. But like read him. Orientalism, like I think everyone in Pakistan should, especially like West aisa hai, Islam aisa hai types. They should read Orientalism, and Said would just be like, "Tum sab pagal ho." In the Dream House. That's a good book. That's a non-fiction book. People should read that. And recently, I've been reading a lot of fantasy fiction.
Okay.
So I've been reading works by Scott Lynch, and I've been reading N.K. Jemisin. So if people want to read fiction, they can read that. For historical fiction, if you've read The Book Thief, you should read All the Light We Cannot See. If you haven't read The Book Thief, you should read The Book Thief. I mean, I read The Book Thief when I was 18, really. So I was like very young when I wasn't young, it's a young adult book. But it's also like, especially if you're like, like hesitant about reading literary fiction because you think ये बहुत heavy हो जाता है, I'd say start off with like The Book Thief because it's like a good stepping stone into this genre. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Aimun, for coming today. Until next time, keep watching.